So for my design class, we got this really cool assignment. Basically, to figure out what makes a design good versus what makes it, well, bad. You know, why do some things just feel so easy and right to use, while other things make you want to throw them against a wall? It turns out, the answers are kind of hidden in plain sight, in all the stuff we use every day.
I mean, just look at this. The sign is clearly screaming, "Do not enter." But the giant arrow on the asphalt is basically saying, "Yep, this way." This is the perfect example of what my professor calls conflicting signals. It's confusing, it's frustrating, and it makes you stop and ask, yeah, why are some things just so confusing? Have you ever walked up to a door and pushed, only to find out you were supposed to pull? Or, you spend like 5 minutes just trying to figure out the power button on a new remote. That feeling, that's not on you. That's usually a design failure.
So to really get to the bottom of it, our assignment was to become like detectives of everyday objects. We were told to just look closer at the world around us and start to unpack the hidden rules that make or break how we interact with things.
For our first crack at it, we had to pick something really simple. I went with the classic desk lamp. It seems about as basic as you can get, right? But what I found out is that even this simple little lamp can teach you a ton about how our brains work.
So the goal here is pretty obvious. You need light. And the way you use it is a single switch. You press it, the light comes on. You press it again, it goes off. Easy. But what's really fascinating is the invisible mental process that our brain goes through to get from "I need more light" to "Okay, the light is on." And there's actually a model for that.
To understand that whole thought process, we can use this thing called Norman's model of interaction. It's this super useful framework that breaks down any action, whether it's flipping a light switch or sending a text, into 7 clear stages of thought.
Let's just walk through it with our lamp. First, you have a goal. I need more light. Then you form an intention. Okay, I'm going to turn on the lamp. You figure out the action, reach over and press the switch, and then you actually do it. Right after, you perceive the result. The lamp is on. You interpret that, thinking, cool, it worked. And finally, you evaluate the outcome. Yep, I can see now. When a design is really good, this entire cycle feels totally seamless, almost invisible.
But here's the thing. A good interaction isn't just about a logical set of steps. A really great design has to think about something way more fundamental, our human senses. We're constantly getting information from the world through different channels. Vision is, of course, the big one. It's how we see the switch on the lamp in the first place. Hearing can give us extra clues like an alert sound. And touch, or haptics, gives us that physical feedback. That satisfying click of the switch confirms that yes, you've actually pressed it. Good design thinks about all of these things.
Okay, so armed with this model of how we think and an understanding of our senses, let's move on to the next case study for class. This is where it gets really fun. The egg separator.
So here we have 2 totally different ways to do the exact same job. On the left, you've got a simple, no-frills, purely functional tool. And on the right, you have a little character that separates eggs through its nose. Just by looking at them, I bet you already have a favorite. So which one is actually the better design? And maybe more to the point, what are we even basing that judgment on? This gets to the core of the question. Is it all about getting the job done? Or do things like personality and fun actually matter?
Okay, let's break it down using a few key ideas. The simple separator, it's got high utility, it definitely does the job, and high efficiency. It does it fast. But its appeal is, well, it's pretty low. Now the novelty one is all about appeal. It's fun, but its utility is maybe a little lower, it could be messy, and its efficiency is for sure worse. So better really depends on what you care about most. Pure function or a little bit of fun. So pulling all this stuff together from class, you start to realize that good design isn't just an accident. It tends to follow some key rules. My professor calls them usability heuristics, which is a fancy term, but let's just look at 3 of the most important ones.
First up, and this one might be the most important, is consistency. Our brains are basically pattern-matching machines. When a design is consistent, we can guess how it's going to work, and that makes it feel super easy and intuitive. We don't have to keep relearning the rules.
And this is a perfect picture of what happens when that rule gets broken. Look at these. One screen says log out and cancel. The other says sign off and abort. Do they mean the same thing? Probably. But that tiny moment of hesitation, that little bit of confusion, that's the classic sign of inconsistent design. It just adds extra work for your brain.
All right, next principle, error prevention.
Look, having a helpful error message is nice, but a design that just stops you from making the mistake in the first place, that is so much better. The whole idea is to think ahead about where someone might mess up and just build a little safety net right into the design.
And we've all seen this classic example. When you try to delete something important, the system doesn't just do it. It stops you and asks, hey, are you sure about this? That one extra step prevents a potentially huge mistake. It's just a perfect, simple example of thinking ahead.
And our final principle for today is all about keeping it simple. Great design is often about what you take away. Every single button, every word, every picture on a screen is competing for your attention. A minimalist design makes sure that the most important stuff stands out.
And the absolute masterclass in this has to be the Google homepage. For years and years, it has resisted adding more clutter. It has one main job, let you search, and the entire design is laser-focused on making that one thing as simple and obvious as possible.
So after this whole project, I seriously can't look at the world the same way. Every single object tells a story. Which brings me to a final question for you. Now that you kind of know what to look for, what's the most frustratingly designed thing you have to deal with every day? And how would you fix it?